Hi, I'm Dan.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
And this is Bourbon Sauce. This week we are pleasure to have Cody with us from Casey Jones. We're sitting here in the Rick House, which is a beautiful establishment. We just got done doing the tour, which was fantastic. Thanks for having us. We appreciate you.
Completely honored, man. Absolutely. You guys had to describe the ambiance in here. You know, we got the cicadas outside just screaming their little heads off. Hey, let's make more cicadas before we die. Mm-hmm. And then in here, there's a distinct smell. What does that smell?
Oak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that. It just smells like history.
It really does.
You know, that's something that I think Casey Jones pride themselves on is the lineage from which it was born. So you want to speak a bit to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, you know, first and foremost, before I get into anything else, I want to say thank you guys so much for spending the time out of what I am sure is a very fractured day for all of you. You've got full-time jobs and commitments and families and things to be taken care of all the time. And so it's always very endearing when anybody in this space on the creative side comes in and spends time with us, because I know it's a huge investment. And, you know, for us being family owned and operated, this is the way that people get introduced to so many of the people in this fold. And it's just such a great opportunity. And so thank you for all the investment. We really appreciate it. So I want to get that out of the way first. I think people really need to understand kind of the dynamics at play here and what it means. So
appreciate you having us for sure.
It's been a great time.
It's our pleasure.
Well, fantastic. So the history, I mean, I would say that Casey Jones probably has unabashedly probably the second most compelling story in the industry, and it's the heritage and the history of the distillery's namesake, Casey Jones. I got to get the nod to Uncle Nearest. If you've not heard their story, it's just, I mean, wow! It's like it's a fairy tale. It's like it's just incredible, their history and what they're building there. But I'd say that we, happily would say, probably the second most compelling story in the industry. The distillery's namesake, Casey Jones, real human being, was actually the master distiller's grandfather, who was a still maker and moonshiner during Prohibition. Mm-hmm. And he really was the grandfather of moonshining, if you will, in Western Kentucky. Originally a coffin builder by trade, illiterate, couldn't read or write, but just an engineering savant. Like, he just builds stuff. And so he, as a younger man, started building these really unique square pot stills. And your listeners will know, you guys know, obviously most of the time you see a still, it's round. It's a column still, or it's a round pot still, or some hybrid version of those two things. And here's Casey making these square stills. And the innovation there was that those stills would actually fit in the back of a Model A pickup truck.
Okay.
For very obvious reasons. And if you get a chance to look on our website and see AJ's first handmade still, which he modeled after his grandfather's, you'll see that it's got handles on it. You guys might have seen that when you did the tour.
Right.
So those handles they're there on purpose. There's one on either side of the still body itself. There's one on the line arm. There's one on the condenser. And so, if you wanted to go out into the woods and make some shine, buddy, grab a hand, let's go. Let's go, and like full send, like that was the intent. So Casey made hundreds of these things during Prohibition in what was then the land between the rivers area. It's about 45 minutes west of the distillery.
Okay.
And you're going to think the geography is totally different. There's two rivers, big ravines running through. Mm-hmm. And it's when you think of like Eastern Kentucky, it's kind of that, but it's the inverse, right? It's not the hills and mountains. It's the inverse. It's all these valleys and whatnot. So he made hundreds of these things. In fact, you don't really know what the actual count is. He made so many of them. And these stills were superior in every way. I mean, they're easy to transport. Like I said, you could put them on the pickup truck. They would cook really, really fast. They were easy to set up. So that square shape, it lended itself really well if you went out into the woods, like you wanted to make shine. You just had to find a couple of rocks you could put up on either end, stabilize it, throw a fire underneath, and boom, you're cooking. You're ready to go.
Yeah, I thought that was something that was very interesting, how everyone uses propane these days or some sort of gas to light and keep their stills kind of burning. And he's just out there with a wood fire. Yeah,
and I mean, back in the day, that's definitely what you would have done if you were shining, because you obviously didn't have access to utility and stuff out there. But that flat design is really, really kind of unique in the whole spirits making process. So you guys have made breakfast a million times. Round saucepan versus a square one.
Yeah.
that square griddle. It gives you really even heating, and you don't have these like dead spaces. So there's a lot of innovation to that piece of it. And then the condenser, we won't nerd out on it too much, but if you think about pictures of old moonshining stills, what you would see normally would be the still line arm connected to a barrel. And that barrel, 53-gallon barrel, just like the one sitting in front of us, would have a copper worm, a tube running down into it. Basically, the still heat would push the evaporate up into the line arm, over into that worm, and then you'd run cold water into that barrel around that copper worm, and that would cool that evaporate down to condensate and then back into liquid. And that's how you would make your spirits. That would be the condensation side of it. Well, they work, but they're terribly inefficient. I mean, you've got the surface area of the evaporate itself, the condensate itself, in that tube versus the cold water around it. There's not a lot of cold water to copper surface area, right? So it's inefficient. So what ends up happening is you never have to run a lot of water through it to actually get it to cool and condense your vapor back to liquids. So Casey actually innovated this, and again, you probably saw one on the tour, which if anybody comes, you get a chance to see this double-walled condenser, which is what we use in modern stills today. I mean, he was making this thing back in the 20s. It's like, what the hell, man? It's pretty cool.
Very innovative.
Yeah.
So he was ahead of his time in many ways with this flat bottom and then the double walling, which kind of lends itself to a unique flavor that I don't think anyone else kind of has, which I think is something, it's a testament to what Casey Jones is doing comparatively to, your competitors out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's, there's a very, very much a distinctness to sort of like the moonshine process that we use and the shine that we make, the Total Eclipse moonshine. You guys have obviously had a chance to taste that. And then the single barrel cuts and the double barrel cuts products, which are aged versions of that same distillate.
Right.
So, but keeping in with the heritage and finishing up that answer, without getting too much more into the story, which I think you guys probably have covered elsewhere, but we still have, AJ took his grandfather's only legally made still, which sits above our bar now, which might actually be the only federally commissioned still ever made, which is super interesting. And he actually modeled his own handmade 140-gallon square pot still, which you guys saw earlier on the tour.
Yeah, the thing's neat.
It's art, It's like, I tell this to everybody, you can write craft on anything. It doesn't mean anything. But there's a 140-gallon handmade square pot still. That's craft. It doesn't get any craftier than that.
Right,
It's like, that's craft, right? So we retired AJ Still March of last year. And again, you guys had a chance to go see the new facility. We put in 2 brand new stills. One of them is a 1,000-gallon hybrid pot still with a offset 4-plate condenser, defragmenter, condenser to the right of that. Workhorse, fantastic piece of equipment. But then to the right of that, in keeping with the heritage, here sits the world's only 200-gallon industrial-grade square pot still that will ever exist.
Yeah.
Called the grandfather to pay homage to Casey. So just to close that loop, that's where we're at.
I love that you have everything in such a footprint that you can see how it goes, and it gets distilled, goes into those vats, and then you put it into your barrels, and then the barrels kind of go away for where we're sitting now to sit for a period of time. Most of them are roughly 5 years.
So we didn't have a bunch of that thing called Dad's money when we started this process. Some brands do, and hey, it's all the more power to you.
Right.
But many small distilleries, they have to start by producing something that generates cash flow. Many distilleries will choose vodka or rum or gin or something like that, that you don't have to age, like a white rum.
Right. Some for a grain spirit that you can get off the shelf and get it going.
Produce, get a label out there, start generating cash in the gift shop and that sort of thing. And our process was to make Casey's original moonshine recipe, the 50% corn, 50% cane. And then, of course, AJ took that recipe and elevated it to all new heights by determining that, hey, what if we actually barrel age this the exact same way you would bourbon? What happens? And so he started putting up barrels as early as 2017, actually. I get that right, of that distillate which we would call single barrel cut, in new heavy char, medium toast barrels from Kelvin Cooperage, just like you would bourbon. And then his second innovation actually was which are a few distilleries barrel aging moonshine. It's super rare.
Yeah.
But he actually started double barreling that to make double barrel cut. And that's where, 3 or 4 years in that new barrel, then he'll take that distillate and dump it into a used bourbon barrel for another year of finishing. And so, this is all kind of the initial activities of the distillery. So we've got inventory of that single barrel cut, some inventory of that double barrel cut. Some of those barrels are quite a bit older.
What I like too is that you guys have gone to almost local sourcing, everything from the corn to the cooperage, and you try to keep it as local as possible. Where if you look at a lot of these other distilleries, they're kind of pulling it from different parts of the country. And I think it's almost like again, it pays homage to that heritage of how he kind of had to use whatever resources were around him. Is that why you guys continue to do that? Is it based on the way Casey Jones was doing it in the beginning, or was there a real thought process behind it? It's not a mistake, obviously.
Yeah, it's multiple reasons. One thing for starters, at the scale that we're operating, we're not at if you're producing 500-600 barrels a day, every cent really, 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 really matters.
Yeah.
And your cost accountants are going to get involved. And if we source from here versus there, we can really the downstream effects of that, or blah blah blah. It's actually why you'll see I'm a fervent believer, and that's why you'll see these new barrels with the top bungs versus the traditional bilge bung, like the one that we have sitting here. The accountants got involved. But for us, it's one part of it is like we'd rather spend more to get product that is near and dear to us. We're blessed. There's an elevator plant literally 6 miles from here, and they process grain from all around the area. I think they're producing for General Mills actually. So they're
okay.
They're they got the big britches on for sure. And so we can get corn from them. We can get the Bloody Butcher corn from them. We can get wheat from them. We can get just like anything we want from them. So everything we can get locally, we do for that reason as well. And then we're a Kentucky Proud brand, and many people may not know about that, but that's you'll see it on some of our bottles. It's like the intent is to communicate that everything that we can source from Kentucky, we do. You get a bottle. We've got a bottle of single barrel white label here, so you're aware, and your listeners are aware. Your watchers are aware that you have to legally have a distilled statement on all of your bottles.
Yeah,
it's a requirement. So we had this handmade 140-gallon square pot still for the first 8 years of operation. There's one thing that you really can't do with a square pot still, and that is you can't agitate it. Right? There's no way to keep the grain moving while you're actually cooking. And so if you're going to make bourbon on that, you've got a traditional sweet mash process when you're not separating the grain from the alcohol before you distill it, then you really can't use a square pot still to make that. It's just not possible. Now you can separate the solids and liquids and then do a run there, do a stripping run, redistill it. Just economically, it's expensive to do. Very, very expensive to do that. So we went the route that a lot of smaller distilleries take when they very first start their processes, and we start contract distilling. So we'll reach out to other distillers and say, hey, here's the mash bill that we want. Can you make this for us? You've got the facility to do it, et cetera. So we have to give credit to, Wilderness Trail. We worked with Jeff the Creed. We worked with MB Roland locally. They produced spirits for us when we first started.
Okay.
Now, March of last year, all of our bourbons, everything that we're doing on site. All the moonshine and the single barrel cut, the double barrel cut, we've always done that on site. That's always been done here. But the bourbons initially were contracted out. Hey, would you make for us? And you'll see this is distilled in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Well, this might have been Jeff the Creed had produced for us.
Right.
Wilderness Trail produced for us. They ship it to us in totes. We throw it in barrels and ages on site.
Nice. So the white label, this is one you picked for us. And why did you pick this one specifically?
Well, you guys have done the tasting.
Yeah.
Probably, 35 minutes ago, something like that. And we've got, 20 some odd products to taste through.
There's a lot.
It's a lot.
I think she said 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Single barrels, distillery exclusives, finished products, honey finished, maple finished. We're bringing our A game every single day. So, again, one of AJ's sort of innovations here, his contribution to the distilling space is this mash bill, our very first mash bill that we started with, 9631. 96 corn, 3 rye, 1% malted barley. This is his innovation. He's like, I want to try to make a very sweet, approachable, easy to drink bourbon.
Yeah.
This is probably the highest mash bill as far as corn goes that I've ever seen.
It probably is.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen one come even remotely close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that is a unique mash bill and it being super high corn. But it drinks very well. It's very complex. It's got a lot going on. And what you would think would be very one-sided without that much corn.
Yeah.
But it still has a lot of flavor imparting on it, even though it's 96% corn.
Well, my hope is you guys tried the small batch white label.
We did.
Right. And those small batches are all going to be like almost 3 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to be obviously maturing over time. And when I want to be very clear, again, you can write small batch on anything. I think a better description of our small batch would be single barrel-ish. So the small batch version is 96 corn, 3 rye, 1% malted barley. That's going to be a sweeter bourbon. The complexity is not going to come from the distillate. You don't have the huge rye characteristic that you would expect.
Right.
So the wood's doing a lot of talking here, right?
Yeah.
As soon as that sweet, initial sweetness and that rye burn, even 3% rye and white dog, that you'll taste a burn to it, pat it, like it's there. As soon as that dissipates, it's like the wood's doing a lot of the talking. So the small batch version of this is incredible. It's easy to drink, 90 proof, easy on the palate. It's like toasted brown sugar is kind of the takeaway flavor. It's really cool on the single barrels, though. It's like there's something magical that happened at 4 years, in my opinion, to my palate. This 4-year barrel, which we picked, I want to say late last year, so it was like one of the last bottles of this thing laying around. The toasted brown sugar, it grew up. Right, it went just from being toasted brown sugar to sassafras, like you get from root beer, and cream soda, and it's just I am. There's like drinking, and then there's drinking.
Right. Yeah.
When you're doing the latter, bottle of that and a dram, I'm good to go, man.
Yeah.
I'm set. Yeah.
I do love like when you have something that especially you have the privilege of working here, and you can kind of taste the evolution of all the distillates, and to have that appreciation for that, it just shows how good it really is. So we're excited to get into it. You want to do the honors of uncorking this?
I'm glad to. I've done this a few times.
So with this, what should we be expecting?
So the best way to describe this is I like to tell a little bit of story when I'm talking about tasting bourbon. I think you guys have been to a Cracker Barrel before, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Several times.
So you walk into Cracker Barrel and you go back towards the host stand, and you'll see at the host stand typically they'll have a wide mouth barrel that they've lopped the top off of. They put a bin in and there's an ice in it, and then in that bin of ice there are all these craft sodas, right? There's a particular craft soda in there that's called Stewart's cream soda.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
You know what that tastes like,
Yeah.
right? So when you drink this and you exhale and your breath travels over your palate and the bridge of your mouth, you're going to get that same exact flavor.
Okay.
It's there. Yeah.
All right. Shoot, let's get into it. Cheers.
Salute.
Here's the cream soda.
It's very tasty for sure. I get some caramel notes in there. And you guys use char 4
We do,
for your
yeah.
barrels from the Kelvin Cooperage, which we got to see during the tour. They showed that little video clip of how they do their flashing of the barrels and everything else like that. What led you guys to using Kelvin over all the other
They're the
Cooperage?
best.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. They're the
Okay.
best, you know?
So the Cooperage, specifically because they do the wood firing versus the propane, which we all know, like you're saying, it's a different.
It matters.
It matters absolutely. And I noticed also, not to throw a wrench in things, some of these barrels, you got a heavy toast number 2 char going on.
Yeah.
What's the reason for that?
Yeah, so whenever you first enter distillate into a barrel, initially the distillate flavor is really the compelling component. And the wood flavor is just not there. It just takes time seasoning for that wood flavor to actually seep in as the distillate interfaces with the barrel and gets into those tannins and pulls those sugars out, etc. And so if you use your char guide, will tell you pretty much that it'll accelerate that process. If you use a heavy char, you can get faster age statements. You can get more flavor out of it quicker.
Right.
So the logic goes. So if you're looking to do something really ultra long aged, you want to probably do a lighter char so that that distillate can sit in that barrel for a longer time, go through more seasons, pushing in and out to get the flavor over time. And just in general, the chars will affect the flavors, period. You'll get different flavors of it. Kelvin actually has this really cool chart that they produce where they talk about the different toasts, light, medium, dark, and then the chars 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay.
and how they impact the flavor over time based on the age. Yeah.
I love that. That makes your life a little easier going in
Yeah,
as, master distillers, trying to figure out how they want to make the mash bill react with that barrel.
For New Year's, we drop a barrel, like you drop a ball, but for New Year's, we drop a barrel.
Empty, I hope.
But yeah. The first year we did this, it was hilarious. So we'll put it up on the forklift and we'll raise it up in the air, and you can see how tall this is. It's up pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
We'll do it in front of the distillery. So we take all the bands off of the barrels except like the bottom one.
Yeah.
We raise the barrel up, and then they tilt the forks, and the barrel rolls off, and it drops. The first year we did this, I kid you not, with nary a band holding onto that thing, the thing falls off from this great height, 20 some odd feet, down to the gravel drive, and it just thud and bounces, and it stayed perfectly intact.
It was like, ha!
There's no glue or nails or anything.
Testament to Kelvin Cooperage and how strong their cooperage
that
is.
one band.
Yeah, we ended up sending the video to Brittany Wimsat, the lady that we work with. Fantastic person over there at Kelvin. Just like, check this out. Your barrels are pretty good, pretty well made, as it turns out.
They look stout.
So where do these go when you all are done using them?
So there is an insatiable demand for used barrels right now.
Yeah.
Breweries want them. Rum distilleries want them. Tequila distilleries want them. Scotch distilleries want them. Everybody wants used bourbon barrels. So there's huge aftermarket for bourbon barrels. We sell most of ours locally, actually. There's enough demand locally at the rate of production that we're at that we sell through them.
What are some local breweries that are typical that come in here to snag some Casey Jones barrels?
We've worked with some folks in Clarksville, and I am remiss. I don't remember. It's quite some time ago that they came and took some barrels, but then more recently we took some up to Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. There's a brewery up in the Lake Geneva area that took a couple barrels. So
that's outstanding. Okay. And then I heard that you take the mash after that's done, and it goes for some cows to partake in. Yeah.
So your mash, you pump it into the still, and you obviously heat it up, and you get all the alcohol that you reasonably can out of it. You get it down to this really, really low proof, and then what you have at the end of that process is called stillage, or spent grain. And then farmers famously like to take this and feed it to their cattle to make them fat and happy.
Yeah, you give them a little bit of happy time right there.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of drunken cows, just just have all that in them. And then you get some extra flavored milk, unless they're just for the beef cattle. And that's different.
We're giving Wagyu a run for its money.
Yeah, right. It'd be interesting. I do like this. This is very delicious to keep. I keep sipping on it, and it's just like, oh man, I could see me killing a whole bottle of this in a weekend.
I've not done that.
Yeah, I was gonna say nose
goes. Yeah,
nose
nobody
knows.
I like also you guys emboss or engrave the corks too with a little CJ on there. It just goes to show the little extras that you go an extra mile for that whole craft. Yeah. And it just speaks volumes to what you guys are doing here.
You can look down the side. They actually have the mash bill. Then they go into which barrel number, level of char, date that it was actually bottled. And we've come across multiple bottles where there's literally zero information on the bottle.
Yeah, these are very informative, and I like that.
There's
no hiding anything.
No, and we were talking about this probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago. It was a long process of changing numbers or whatever, but I've been in probably, I don't know, 300 some odd stores in the last 18 months, something like that. So you're just a sponge every time you go.
Mhm.
One of the hats I wear is all the outside sales outside of Kentucky.
Okay, busy man.
And I had the same sort of intuition. It's just like there's just not a lot of transparency out there. Like people are afraid to expose their mash bills, which is just laughable to me because I mean, do you know how many types of rye there are?
Right.
And how many types of malted barley there are?
And
Right.
corns
You know,
and
it's like,
everything.
come on.
Yeah.
There's no, they say nothing about what yeast did you actually use, what temperature did you cook your grain, and how long did you hold it, and are
Right.
you using any amylase or anything like this is even though that's more information than most would share, that's still a bumper sticker version of it.
Well, I mean,
100%.
then it comes down to where in the rick house you were
Mhm.
stacked. Were
What
you
was the seasons
closer to
like?
the center, backside, up?
Mhm.
You know, did a tornado come through and rip off half your roof, and now you're,
Now, are you guys going to get bonded for your?
Yes, so we're working on a bottle and bond
Okay.
project next, and the 4 grain total clips mash bill. That I think that's what we're going to do for a bottle and bond.
So does the bottle and bond have to be a completely separate rick house?
It just has to be a bonded warehouse.
Okay.
Same distiller, same growing season, bottled at 100 proof, and I think you put up at least up to 125. I don't think there's any proof restrictions on what you can put it up to, but we're working on that. Like,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm excited to
One of
see
our
when
next
that
things.
happens because it's like you can tell with the flavors that you guys are real close to being able to just knock that out of the
Yeah,
park too. And
I
I'm
hope so.
excited to see, because here in Kentucky and Tennessee, the climate is just it's perfect. For
It doesn't
making-
get any better. Than
Yeah.
this.
It's great.
Texas, we got some, brands really coming into the scene. Still, Austin's doing really well there. Garrison Brothers, obviously.
Weren't a big fan there.
Well, the one we had,
Yeah, weren't
the
a big
single
fan
barrel
of
that we
that
had
one.
from
Yeah.
them, it was
Yeah.
a miss for us. But I'm sure there are other ones, just like any single barrel. You never know what you're
Right.
going to get,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
risk. So that's why me personally, I'm a fan of batch, small batches, because it's uniformity,
consistency.
I know what I'm
Consistency.
getting every time.
Yeah.
Yep,
and
when I
it's like
pop
no
that
matter what I
top-
grab off a shelf, which is
Yeah.
what I also like about Casey Jones. You guys do a lot of batch distillers, barrel bottles that you put out there. So
You'll have a toasted coming up.
Well, I mean, again, technically, everything we have is technically toasted
Mhm.
because the Kelvin Cooperage barrels
Yeah.
are toasted and charred.
right,
But it's funny you asked that. AJ and I were talking about this next shipment of barrels that we get in are going to be just toasted barrels, and so we're thinking about finishing spirits in those toasted barrels to come up with a toasted release. Yeah.
love that. Is there anything else you guys got on the horizon? Some big events? You guys do philanthropy? Anything along those lines?
Yeah. So to the philanthropy piece, it seems like ancient history now, although it really was just yesterday. And I'm sure if you were impacted, it certainly feels that way. But there was a huge flooding that we had in eastern Kentucky not so long ago,
Yep.
and then the massive tornadoes that came through western Kentucky
Yeah,
prior to
Murray
that.
got nailed.
No, it's just absolutely ridiculous. We actually had whole communities just wiped off the map.
Yeah,
The KDA, the Kentucky Distillers Association, Fred Minnick, his crew, they teamed up and did auctions to help raise money for both of those causes. And I'm sure you can look this up on Google to see how well we did for both instances. But yeah, we were involved in that. We did a barrel pick for both of those, and what the hell else is the point? It's like we're trying to make good spirits for good spirits here, and sometimes we got to help each other out, and so that's what it's for.
yeah, absolutely.
So y'all do barrel picks, so
Mhm.
people can come and do barrel picks.
We do.
How
yeah.
does that process work for you all?
It pretty seamless actually. So we've done 30, 40 at this point, and it's usually like we'll make a connection with somebody. If it's an outside sales deal where it's a store or retailer that wants one, we just did a single barrel wheat that's going to be picked up probably next week for the Atlanta market.
Okay.
We did one for Texas, another wheat that was picked up probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I'm definitely a big fan of your all's weeded.
Yeah, thank you. But the process is super easy. Like you come in, we'll set up barrels, we'll
Mhm.
sample from them, you find the one you like, and then we do a little snippet on it and get it made for you, and there you go.
Nice.
Okay.
You guys got, you guys are coming up on 10 years, or you're just cresting the 10-year mark here?
10 years this November, and you had asked an earlier question about big events, releases, etc. So we July 4th, 5th, and 6th, we're going to put on a hell of an event. We're going to do a 3-day. I haven't told anybody this, by the way, so this is an exclusive.
Oh.
Exclusive. Let's pour up for the exclusive
Yeah.
news just in breaking.
Breaking news.
All right.
This just in, local distillery announces 3-day epic event July 4th, 5th, and 6th at Casey Jones Distillery.
I feel like the little Asian lady off of Family Guy. Tom, I am standing here in a rick house with pressing news for you.
Right.
Salute. gentlemen.
Salute.
Cheers.
So 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're doing.
And this is July 4th, 5th,
July
and 6th.
4th, 5th,
So
and 6th.
4th, the Independence Weekend, you guys are capitalizing on that.
It's the busiest time of year for
Yeah.
us. Everybody's out and traveling, and we've got such a beautiful facility for people to enjoy. And so, what we're going to do, we're going to do a 3-day bottle your own bourbon event.
Oh, wow.
And we're not doing 1 barrel, we're doing 3 barrels. We're going to do a wheat red label single barrel. We're going to do a white label 9631 single barrel. And we're going to do one of our Eclipse casks, which is a blue label, one of our oldest, now 7-year-old single barrel cask strength releases
Awesome.
on the barrel cut. So not only that, but we have these really cool Art Deco style bottles that we picked for the European market we just got into this year.
Right.
And when I posted about those bottles, people went nuts because they're really, really pretty bottles. They're really fantastic. They almost look like a really nice decanter, actually.
Okay.
And so we're going to do the release in those bottles.
Oh, that's
which
awesome.
will be kind of an exclusive.
So
Yeah.
we heard about those bottles on the tour,
Yeah.
but I have still not seen
Oh,
said
well,
bottle.
we'll make that happen for sure.
Yeah. Is it kind of like, you know how Yellowstone has their limited release and they make those unique shaped bottles? Is that kind of the
Same
inspiration
sort of
behind
premise,
it?
yeah,
Or-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll notice for Peg's birthday, AJ's birthday, the first 5-year-old wheat, the first 5-year-old high rye, it's a slightly different bottle. This is a Gettysburg bottle.
Okay.
These bottles are called stream bottles. They're
Right.
a little bit more old school style looking bottles.
Oh, I can't
So
wait.
as far as your European stuff, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're good.
Where are some of the places that they're going to be able to pick
Still
these up country-wise?
in the works, right?
Uh-huh.
So the order is going out to Lithuania actually
Okay.
this next week. And then-
Lithuania.
Mhm.
Wow.
So that's where our importer actually is based out of.
Okay.
And his warehouse is in Lithuania, and he's making deals to get it into different countries.
Okay.
He's had a lot of positive response from Poland, Spain, Italy, UK, really kind of all over. So
I feel like this needs to be in Ireland.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah. Give
Yeah.
them a little run for their money with
Uh-huh.
their Scotch.
Wait a minute,
Or the
because
Irish
you have the
whiskey.
700. Actually, one can actually mail to Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So now people in Ireland can actually order their bottles and have them mailed in.
There we
Oh,
go.
there we
Because
go.
the
We've got some
750
friends
is,
of ours that are
Too much.
followers that are
Mm-hmm.
watching. If you guys want some Casey Jones and you're in the UK and Ireland, you should be able to acquire some of that. Well, this has been awesome. We appreciate your time. We're looking forward to seeing more things coming out of Casey Jones. This is delicious. So if people are curious, you can find them on the internet. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube,
Everything,
Everywhere.
every social media platform.
every social
that you
media
can think of.
platform.
Oh, you're even on the TikTok.
We are, yeah.
All
I do
right.
on occasion post on TikTok.
So we'll be tagging you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll be looking forward to those next releases that are
Yeah,
coming.
of course.
Yeah, so you guys got to come out here at Casey Jones. Check them out. They've got a lot of things you can find here at the gift shop, at the distillery. Do tours, whatever your heart's desire is literally right here in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So take a trip. It's worth it. But until next time, drink your favorite bourbon and get soft.
Cheers.
Cheers.